Adisi where stories begin.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Bedtime Stories series with me, Aditi. Now before I begin the story today, let me ask you a question. I want each one of you to think for a moment and tell me what are the kind of people that you would be impressed with. The first couple of things that come to your mind when you ask yourself this question would probably be somebody who is well dressed, somebody who speaks confidently, somebody who speaks fluently, or maybe even somebody who conducts himself or herself with a great amount of confidence and energy. Such people always are attractive, always end up leaving an impression around those that they hang out with. But all that glitters isn't gold. And today's story, dear friends, is just a perfect example to explain that. Our story today begins with this gorgeous looking young girl, a lady who walks into this aircraft holding her boarding pass in her hand, looking for a seat that was allocated to her, just like all other passengers. This young, gorgeous lady looked extremely courteous, someone we'll think is extremely well-mannered and humble. Now, just like all passengers, she too was looking around for her seat. After a few minutes, she did end up finding the seat that was allocated to her, but along with finding that out, she also realized that the seat that was allocated to her was actually a seat that was right next to a person who was handicapped. Having realized this young lady was extremely uncomfortable. So she took a few brief moments, thought to herself, and walked straight up to the air hostess. Having reached the air hostess, she requested her to exchange her seat with some other seat, any other seat that would be free or vacant in the flight. Now the air hostess couldn't understand what the problem was, so in order to help her correctly in an appropriate fashion, she asked, as would be logical, what the problem was. So she turned around and spoke to the lady and asked her, "Madam, can you please clarify and let me know what exactly is the problem with your seat?" This gorgeous lady paused for a moment, trying to figure out how she can explain her predicament. After a few brief seconds of silence, she just shrugged her shoulders and said, "I'm just not comfortable with that seat." So the air hostess still politely responded and asked her yet again. She said, "Madam, in order for me to be able to assist you correctly, I will need to understand what exactly is the problem with your seat. So can you please share with me where the problem is?" So this gorgeous lady, not knowing how else she could escape this situation, just said that the person sitting next to me is a handicapped person. He has no arms. Both his arms are missing. I just wouldn't be comfortable sitting next to somebody like that. The air hostess was a little shocked hearing this. Of course, she too expected another answer. An explanation like this was absolutely bizarre and unacceptable. Nonetheless, she looked at this gorgeous lady and told her, "Ma'am, let me look around for another vacant seat. I promise I'll do the best I can." Saying so, she went around the aircraft looking for a vacant seat. However, in the economy class section, there was no single vacant seat that was available. So she turned right back around and approached this lady and apologized for the inconvenience and told her, "Madam, I'm sorry, but there isn't a single vacant seat in the economy class." But by now, this lady was absolutely irritated. She just wanted a solution to the situation she was in. She couldn't fathom a journey where she could comfortably sit next to this handicapped person. Somehow, this entire experience would be a very unbearable ordeal for her. Realizing that the air hostess didn't see merit in her argument, she was a little irritated. And not knowing what else she could do, she ended up raising her pitch. Out of irritation, she started yelling at the air hostess, saying that it was their duty to ensure passengers' comfort. Customers come first. And your airline, she said, is known for customer service. Customer is king, she said, and you may as well do anything and everything possible to ensure that I have a comfortable flight. Or else, be sure that I will write a bad review on all social media platforms against this airlines for the lack of support you provide for your customers. By now, this lady had created such a ruckus, such a hue and cry that every passenger sitting around noticed and heard exactly what was going on. Everybody sat silently watching this entire argument. Now, naturally, the air hostess had nothing and nowhere else to go. So in order to calm this lady down, she assured her that she would try and find the best possible solution in this situation. Saying so, she asked this lady to wait patiently. Having said that, this air hostess walked up to the cockpit to meet the pilot. After a few moments, she came out, smiled and greeted the young lady and said, "Dear ma'am, I'm pleased to inform you that we have found a solution for you. There isn't a single seat available in the economy class section. However, we have found an extraordinary solution to this situation, something that has never ever happened in the history of this airline so far. The entire aircraft is packed. There isn't a single seat available, barring one seat in the business class." Hearing this gorgeous lady let out a sigh of relief. And before she could turn around and walk back to her seat, the air hostess quickly walked past her and walked up to this man who was sitting on the seat, this handicapped man who sat in a corner. She walked up to him and told him, "Sir, if you don't mind, would you be comfortable shifting to a seat that is available in the business class section of this aircraft? We would definitely not want you to travel in discomfort in the company of such a passenger. So, sir, if you don't mind, would you please walk with me to the business class section?" When the air hostess said this, every passenger sitting around welcomed this decision with a round of applause. There was a cheer all around, and this young, gorgeous-looking lady had nowhere to look. Ashamed of her actions and her words, all she could do was look down to the ground. In moments, this handicapped passenger stood up and looked around at the passengers sitting all around him. And this story has much more to teach us than just a simple and humble principle of life. All that glitters is not gold. When this man stood up, he announced to the people around him and said, "I am a former captain of the Indian Army, and I lost both my arms during a rescue operation at the borders of Kashmir. When I heard what this lady had to say, all I could think of and feel was a deep sense of regret and remorse. I questioned myself about why I sacrificed my arms for such people. But when you walked up to me and told me what the airlines has decided to do in order to deal with this situation, and the way all of these passengers have applauded and welcomed this decision, I hold my head up in pride and feel a sense of honor that I have sacrificed my arms for these people, for these citizens of my country." Saying that, without looking at this lady, he simply walked out of his seat, bowed before everybody else around him, and was escorted to the business class seat by this air hostess. So yes, not everything that glitters is gold. Never judge a book by its cover. This story has so many lessons within it. And I truly hope that all of you have thoroughly enjoyed this story today and also understood the depth and the meaning behind the story. With that, this is Aditi signing off until we meet again with yet another exciting bedtime story. Do write your comments and feedback in the comment section of this video. I look forward to hearing from each one of you.
Adisi, where stories begin.